Hello, uh, 14th day of 30 days reading challenge. I am reading The Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky, part 3, page number 211. Oh dear, I have faith in him, but I haven't slept all night, exclaimed the poor woman. They came out into the street. Do you know, don't you? When I dozed a little this morning, I dreamed of Marfa Petrovna. She was all in white. She came up to me, took my hand, and shook her head at me, but so sternly as though she were blaming me. Is that a good omen? Oh dear me. You don't know Dmitri Prokofiev that you don't know Dmitri Prokofiev that Marfa Petrovna did. No, I did not know. Who is Marfa Petrovna? She died suddenly, and only fancy afterward, Mamma put in Dunya. He does not know who was Marfa Petrovna is. Ah, you don't know. And I was thinking that you knew all about us. Forgive me, Dmitry Petrovich. I don't know what I am thinking about these last few days. I took upon you really as a providence for us, and and so I took it for granted that you knew all about us. I look on you as a relation. Don't be angry with me for saying so. Dear me, what's the matter with your right hand? Have you knocked it? Yes, I bruised it, muttered Rasmussen overjoyed. I sometimes speak too much from the heart so that Dunya finds fault with me. But dear me, what a cupboard he lives in. I wonder whether he is awake. Does this woman, his landlady, consider it a room? Listen, you see, he does not like to show his feelings, so perhaps I shall annoy him with my weakness. Do advise me, Dmitri Prokofiev. How am I to treat him? I feel quite respectful. Don't question him too much about anything. If you see him frown, don't ask him too much about his health. He does not like that. Dmitri Prokofiev. How hard it is to be a mother. But here are the stairs. What an awful staircase. Mother, you are quite pale. Don't stress yourself, darling, said Dunya, caressing her. Then, with flashing eyes, she added, he ought to be happy at seeing you, and you are tormenting yourselves. Wait, I will peep in and see whether he has waked up. The lady slowly followed Rasmussen, who went on before, and when they reached the landlady's door on the fourth story, they noticed that her door was tiny crack open, and that two keen black eyes were watching them from the darkness within. Then, when their eyes met, the door was suddenly shut with a slam at Pulcheria Electrona almost cried out. Chapter 3. He is well, quite well, Zosimov carried cheerfully as they entered. He had come in 10 minutes earlier, and he was sitting in the same place as before, on the sofa. Raskolnikov was sitting in the opposite corner, fully dressed and carefully washed and combed, as he had not been for some time past. The room was immediately crowded, yet Nasya managed to follow the visitor in and stayed to listen. Raskolnikov really was almost well, as compared with his condition the day before, but he was still pale, listless, and somber. He looked like a wounded man, or one who has undergone some terrible physical suffering. His brows were knitted, his lips compressed, his eyes feverish. Eyes spoke little and reluctantly, as though performing a duty, and there was a restlessness in his movements. He only wanted a sling on his arm or a bandage on his finger to complete the impression of a man with a painful abscess or a broken arm. The pale, somber face lighted up for a moment when his mother and sister entered, but this only gave it a look of more intense suffering in place of its listless dejection. Then the light soon died away, but the look was of suffering remained, and Josimov working and studying his patients with all the zest of a young doctor beginning to practice. Noticed in him no joy at the arrival of his mother and sister, but a sort of bitter, hidden determination to bear another hour or two of inevitable torture. He saw later that almost every word of the following conversation seemed to touch on some sore place and irritate it, but at the same time he marveled at the power of controlling himself and hiding his feeling in a patient who the previous day had, like a maniac, fallen into a frenzy at the slightest word. Yes, I see myself now that I am almost well, said Raskolnikov, giving his mother and sister a kiss of welcome, which made Pulcheria, Alexandrovna, radiant at once. And I don't say this as I did yesterday, I said, addressing Razumov with a friendly pressure of his hand. Yes, indeed, I am quite surprised at you today, began Josimov, with much delighted at the lady's entrance, for he had not succeeded in keeping up a conversation with his patient for 10 minutes. In another 3 or 4 days, if he goes on like this, he will be just as before, that is, as he was a month ago, or two, or perhaps even three. This has been coming on for a long while. Confess that, confess now that it has been perhaps your own fault. He added with a tentative smile, as though still afraid of irritating him. It is very possible, answered Raskolnikov coldly. I should say, too, continued Josimov with jest, that your complete recovery depends solely on yourself. Now that one can talk to you, I should like to impress upon you that it is essential to avoid the elementary, so to speak, fundamental causes tending to produce your morbid condition. In that case, you will be cured. If not, it will go from bad to worse. These fundamental causes I don't know, but they must be known to you. You are an intelligent man and must have observed yourself. Of course, I fancy the first stage of your derangement coincides with your leaving the university. You must not be left without occupation, and so work and a definite aim set before you might, I fancy, with very beneficial. Yes, you are perfectly right. I will make haste and return to the university, and then everything will go smoothly. Josimov, who had begun his sage advice partially and make an effect before the ladies, was certainly somewhat mystified when, glancing at his patient, he observed unmistakable mockery on his face. This lasted an instant. However, Pulcheria Alexandrovna began at once thanking Josimov, especially for his visit to their lodging the previous night. What? He saw you last night? Raskolnikov asked, as though startled. Then you have not slept either after your journey? Asked Claudia. That was only till 2 o'clock tonight, and I never go to bed before 2 at home. I don't know how to thank him either. Raskolnikov went on, suddenly frowning and looking down, setting aside the question of payment. Forgive me for referring to it, he returned to just. I really don't know what I have done to deserve such special attention from you. I simply don't understand it. And it weigh upon me indeed because I don't understand it. I tell you so candidly. Don't be irritated. Josimo forced himself to laugh. Assume that you are my first patient. Well, we follows just beginning to practice love our first patient as if they were our children. And and some almost fall in love with them. And of course, I am not rich in patience. I see nothing about him, added Raskolnikov, pointing to Razumov, though he has had nothing from me either but insult and trouble. What nonsense he is talking. Why you are in a sentimental mood today, are you? Shouted Razumohin. If he had had more penetration, he would have been that there was no trace of sentimentality in him, but something indeed quite the opposite. But Avodia Romanova noticed it. She was intently and uneasily watching his brother. As for you, mother, I don't dare to speak, he went on, as though repeating a lesson learned by heart. It is only today that I have been able to realize a little how distressed you must have been here yesterday, waiting for me to come back. When he had said this, he suddenly held out his hand to his sister, smiling without a word. But in his smile there was a flash of real, unfazed, not false or pretended, unfazed feeling. Tonya caught it once and warmly pressed his hand, overjoyed and thankful. It was the first time he had addressed her since their dispute the previous day. The mother's face lighted up with ecstatic happiness at the sight of his conclusive, unspoken reconciliation. Yes, that is what I love him for, Razumoin, exaggerating it all, muttered to himself, with a vigorous turn in his chair. He has these moments, and how well he does it all. The mother was thinking to herself what generous impulse he has, and how simply, how delicately he put an end to all the misunderstanding with his sister, simply by holding out his hand at the right minute and looking at her like that. And what fine eyes he has, and how fine his whole face is. He is even better looking than Dunya. But, good heaven, what a suit! How terribly he is dressed. Vasya, the messenger boy, in a fancy 11 shop, is better dressed. I could rush at him and hug him, weep over him, but I am afraid. Oh dear, he is so strange. He is talking kindly, but I am afraid. I, what am I afraid of? Oh, Rhoda, you wouldn't believe. She began suddenly, in the haste to answer his words to her. How happy Tonya and I were yesterday. Now that it's all over and done with, with, and we are quite happy again. I can tell you, Fancy, can we run here almost straight from the train to embrace you and that woman. Ah, here he is. Here she is. Good morning, Nasya. She told us at once that you were lying in a high fever and had just run away from the doctor in delirium, and they were looking for you in the streets. You can't imagine how we felt. I could not help thinking of the tragic end of Lieutenant Botanovich, a friend of your father's. You can't remember him, Claudia, who ran out in the same way in a high fever and fell into the well in the courtyard. and they couldn't pull him out till next day. Of course, we exaggerated things. We were on the point of rushing to find Pyotr Petrovich, ask him to help, because we were alone, utterly alone, she said plaintively, and stopped short, suddenly recollecting it was still somewhat dangerous to speak of Pyotr Petrovich, although we were quite unhappy again. We were quite happy again. Yes, yes, of course. It's very annoying, Raskolnikov muttered in reply, but with such a preoccupied and inattentive air that Dunya gazed at him in perplexity. What else was it I wanted to say? He went on trying to recollect. Oh, yes, mother. And you too, Dunya. Please don't think that I didn't mean to come and see you today and was waiting for you to come first. What are you saying, Rudia? Cried Pulcheria Alexandrovna. She too was surprised. Is he answering us as a duty? Dunya wondered. Is he being reconciled and asking forgiveness as though he were performing a rite or repeating a lesson? I have only just waked up and wanted to go to you, but was delayed owing to my clothes. I forgot yesterday to ask her, Nasya, to wash out the blood. I have only just dressed. Blood? What blood? Luceria Alexandrovna asked in alarm. Oh, nothing. Don't be uneasy. It was when I was wondering about yesterday, rather delirious. I chanced upon a man who had been run over, a clerk. Delirious? But you remember everything, Razamoy interrupted. That's true, Raskolnikov answered with special carefulness. I remember everything, even to the slightest detail. And yet, why I did that and went there and said that I can't clearly explain now. A familiar phenomenon, interposed Asimov. Actions are something performed in a mastery and most cunning way, while the directions of actions is deranged and depend on various morbid impressions. It's like a dream. Perhaps it's a good thing, really, that he should think me almost a madman, thought Raskolnikov. Why people in perfect health act in the same way too, observed Dunya, looking uneasily at Sasi. There is some truth in your observation, the latter replied. In that sense, we are certainly or not infrequently like madmen, but with a slight difference that the deranged are somewhat madder, for we must draw a line. A normal man, it is true, hardly exists among dozens, perhaps hundreds of thousands. Hardly one in is to be met with. At the word madman, carelessly dropped by Jasimov in his chatter on his favorite subject, everyone frowned. Raskolnikov said, seemingly not to pay attention, plunged in thought and with a strange smile on his pale lips. He was still meditating on something. Well, what about the man who was unaware? I interrupted you. Razumin cried hastily. What? Raskolnikov seemed to wake up. Oh, I got spattered with blood, helping to carry him to his lodging. By the way, Mom, I did an unpardonable thing yesterday. I was literally out of my mind. I gave away all the money you sent me to his wife for the funeral. She is a widow now, in consumption, a poor creature. Three little children, starving, nothing in the house. There's a daughter too, perhaps. You would have given it yourself if you would seen them. But I had no right to do it, I admit. especially as I knew how you needed the money yourself. To help others, one must have the right to do it, or else Christians she wishes content. He laughed. That's right, isn't it, Dunya? No, it's not, answered Dunya firmly. Bah, you too have ideas, he muttered.